Welcome to Take Two. I know this morning feels like it's been a full day already because especially for those of us who are here, in the middle of the night, essentially, we were in the newsroom to receive the breaking news even before we could tell you. The news came down around 4:20-ish this morning, 4:25. I was standing in the newsroom next to our producer, Andy, and Sammy, you were there, and he said, oh, hey, I just got an alert from BART. So you're our assignment editor on Mornings on 2. Take it away from there.
Yeah, so we took a look, right? We're like, trying to figure out what it is. Sometimes this happens as they're starting things up. Right. We've seen it, in the past. Usually it's like a line, right? The red line's down, the green line's down, whatever.
That's exactly what I thought initially, because the whole system being down, that
doesn't really happen very often.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we were like, all right, well, let's send Allie, because she was going to be here in Oakland on a story that we've been working on for a little while. We're like, well, let's just send Allie, let's get her moving. And then, like, I finished reading and, like, actually processing the information, because we're still waking up, kind of. I'm like, wait, no, this is everywhere.
The whole system,
this
all
is
50
everything,
stations.
right? So James was on his way to San Francisco. He was going to be focusing on the new Pope, right? That was going to be his story. They were like, we've got to change gears, man. If there's no BART for anyone, like, this is huge. This is big. It's going to impact everybody in some form or fashion, right? So we moved James to a BART station in the city. He goes to Embarcadero. Allie gets to Walnut Creek. They get there somehow in time for 5 o'clock at the top of the show. And then we just start pounding away at it, trying to get information, right? Reaching out to BART.
We did a phone call with Chris Philippi, one of the spokespeople.
Yep, in the 6 o'clock hour. And then, we even talked about, and we changed how we do our hits, right? Because normally our reporters hit at the top of the hour and the 30, right? That's just kind of our normal course of business. We're like, this is huge. We've got to be getting updates in. And so we slid it so that we had someone every 15 minutes.
But the other thing in between all that is, you're sending out updates on our in-house system here constantly from different agencies that want to update the community. You heard from people, might have heard from some people in the newscast that say they turned on the newscast to find out what was happening. Like when they wake up in the morning. So, you're getting the information. We might be speaking it, but you'll have people in the newsroom like Sammy getting us the information that we're confirming it, and then we relay it to the viewers out there. So you don't see all that stuff happening behind the scenes, but that's what was happening, and it was all morning long. Was for the, how long were we on? 6 hours or whatever? It was the entire 6 hours we were on this.
And it's interesting because, there was a moment in that kind of 4:25 a.m. window when all of us were together. One of us said, well, what if it's resolved in 10 minutes? Because there's a concern, kind of speaking from your viewpoint. If we throw all of our reporters, all of our photographers, if we throw everything at this one breaking news story, then 10 minutes later it's nothing. We're like, oh, we're not going to get that deep priest, the Pope coverage we wanted. So you really do have to balance. All right, this is huge right now, but will it be huge in half an hour, in 4 hours? And in this case, the answer was yes.
It does happen sometimes where you pull everything and it doesn't work out.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot.
And I was wondering how soon we would see the effect on the morning commute on a Friday, because
that was insane.
It took longer than I thought, but then it happened fast.
Right?
That was nuts.
So usually on a Friday, and I do have the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza up right now on my monitor here. It is still very crowded, and I just thought, oh, well, on Friday, this won't be as big of a problem. Boy, was I wrong about that.
Well, I just, after COVID hit, we watched traffic on Fridays, go to nothing.
Right.
And, you pointed out, let me look at this live picture again over.
I mean 10 o'clock. We're looking at 10:04. Beginning to concern me because we have, it's so bad on the bridge that even the carpool lanes here are,
that's backing up. The ones right there. That you can see on your screen.
We've got 2 crews dayside that are following on this. Jana Katsuyama, who's going to be here in the East Bay following up, and then Christian Kaftan will be following up.
I love when you talk
city.
TV talk, Sammy.
Right?
Right? Okay, so I think that people who watch Take Two are going to get a couple of insider TV things. First of all, you move crews around. All right, so we were going to cover the Pope. Right, James was going to go out, and
there was going to be a mass at 7 o'clock in San Francisco. We were,
that mass still happened. He was going to get MOS, which is interviews,
man on the street.
And so when newsrooms have things shift, that's how you move crews around, right? This is a bigger story, so there's always priorities. Kind of looking to see the way the sausage is made in a newsroom, right?
It's like what impacts the most people, right? And obviously the Pope impacts 1.4 billion plus, but then it was also a little bit of yesterday's news. Then you get to the BART thing, and you know the BART's going to impact all commuters in some form or fashion because the traffic's going to get bad. And, you know, just generally speaking, a morning show, people want to know what's the weather, what's the traffic, can I get to work, what do I got to wear, and like what are like the 3, 4, 5 things I need to know for the day, right? So the traffic thing is huge for mornings.
Gassia and Andre were here instead of Pam and Dave. That's something new. So then we have to shift other resources. You know, they're not going to be doing the noon today, right? So we have to. It's all like a chess piece.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the gentleman we heard from. I don't remember. Was it 5 a.m., 6 a.m.? I don't know. But remember, he was saying that he was hoping to take BART to get to a job interview.
Yeah, Allie was talking to him. He was supposed to create East Bay Mud.
Right.
He was going to go to East Bay Mud for a job.
Granular, right? Because, you know, for some people, I'll just call an Uber. For other people, it's like, this was the job I was hoping to land. I think, was it East Bay Regional Parks? I hope they give this guy.
He said East Bay Mud.
Okay, East Bay Mud. Yes, East Bay Mud. I hope they give the guy a break. But, like, you know, like exactly what you talked about. Yes, you know, there are 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, but, like, you need to come right down to the granular effect of what this has on me, and by me I mean every single person living in the Bay Area. A complete system-wide shutdown of BART. There are very few things. I mean, honestly, we have had times when the Bay Bridge has been shut down due to a major traffic accident or fire. I mean, this is on protest. This is one of the few things that's on par with that. I mean, really, there's just a small handful of stories where you know thousands, tens of thousands of people are very directly impacted.
Lisa Fernandez, who may be joining us at some point,
coming up at around 10:20.
The New York Times did something on BART this morning. This made nationally it got people's attention.
I mean, I don't think BART is as big as New York City subway, but you know, it's something similar to the New York City subway. It is our biggest one. So it is. If you think about the New York City subway going down, I mean, that's what we have here.
It's our equivalency.
I kept thinking about the folks that are. One guy said he spent $50 on it. Yeah, I felt bad.
Uber, the guy from San Francisco trying to get to Richmond.
Then they had surge pricing on Lyft and Uber.
Right.
I looked on there, and immediately what jumped out at me, I just put an address in to San Francisco International Airport, and I was just there. And I normally take it from here. I live in downtown Oakland to this end. On a bet it's $60. It was $90 today. Yeah. You know, $60, $50, just depending on what kind of car.
They usually have a few extra fees for airport drops, but 90, that's crazy.
90, it was insane, dude. And can you imagine you were going to be sitting in this traffic?
There's some really happy Uber drivers today.
They are, yeah. I mean, they're making some money, but I got to feel bad for some of the folks who are getting to their jobs and couldn't get to their jobs. People who are going for interviews. I hope East Bay Mud takes it easy on them.
Right.
Yeah, they would have known that this is happening today.
I'm sure, I mean, we saw a lot of, like, all sorts of different agencies start, like the San Francisco court said there will be some delays
got that information,
because of stuff. So, you know, people get it. When BART goes down, like, it's just, everything's going to be out of whack.
Out of your
what gets me is that all these extra cars in the city on a Friday, that's not good.
Well, I had the idea. I texted Christian Captain, who's following it. I was like, I wonder if it'd be great marketing for a bar or restaurant to be like, hey, BART was down today. You're in the city. Come have a few drinks on happy hour while you wait for dinner and let the traffic die down.
Well, some people do that on a regular day, though. Yeah, they do. They will just go to a restaurant before they head back across the bridge. I do know people that do that.
I'd rather spend an hour there and enjoy myself.
Yeah, just imagine what 101's going to look like this afternoon. I wouldn't want to be there. And a lot of people are probably thinking, how is this going to affect me? That's how it's going to affect them.
You know what else I noticed? I know we have to break you loose because you have somewhere else to go and be, but I did hear in one of the many interviews that we did with Alicia Trost, she's one of the spokespeople for BART, she did sort of throw out this shows how critical BART is to the Bay Area when BART goes down, right? And of course, let's remind viewers of the reporting we've been doing. BART, many other transit agencies facing very, dark futures if the money that they need doesn't come through. They've been working so hard, and I just wonder. And I really just wonder how long, for lack of a better term, this smell will stay with BART riders, because, boy, if you ruin my Friday and I couldn't get to that job interview, do I trust you again on Monday, right?
Yeah. Well, but you don't have
BART's
a choice.
Been working, well, right,
That's the thing,
but for those who have the choice, right? For those
it's
who
like,
do have
you
the
see
choice,
something like that, are you likely to say, I'll rely on BART, or are you going to say, no, I got to have my car, I got to have
even more to get the riders it needs? It's just, I mean, look, I feel bad for BART. I feel worse for those people who are stranded today.
It's just the reality of things. When something like this happens, you lose trust, and it's so easy to lose it, but it's hard to get it back.
I will say, I don't know if you guys were reading the social media comments about this.
There's not much trust out there on social media.
They were not happy. They were not happy about this, but I can understand if you're trying to get to work.
But also think who jumps on those platforms.
It's the immediate,
because we talked about this recently on Take Two. I was like, you know, BART in reality has made a lot of progress from when things were at their worst, right?
Absolutely,
with crime, with everything.
Absolutely,
they've made a ton of, but it doesn't feel that way in the public because it takes time.
It takes time for that to happen.
We saw the people who got to the, you know, the very first interview we did were 2 people going to the airport.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? And that...
Miss a flight.
I wanted to point that out, right? Because if you have to take Uber and Lyft, you can get to the airport. And I've done it. I've used BART to get to the airport before. It costs a few dollars. I mean, when you do it on BART. But it's exponentially much more money.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're taking BART, you know, conceivably, you're trying to watch your dollar.
Right.
And so, which many people are trying to do it. Now they have to come out of the pocket. Maybe they're not even making that kind of money today. The money they have to spend just to get to work. So
I know you have to go. We're going to cut you loose. Let me just mention real quick, BART just tweeted, like in the past minute or so, no, I'm sorry. BART is recovering from an earlier problem. There's a 20-minute delay system-wide due to an earlier train control problem. Boy, that really, I mean, to me, I don't want to say the BART is minimizing what everybody went through, but I think riders would like to see a little more.
Is that from the SF BART Alert account?
Yeah, SF BART Alert.
I think those are probably, those are automated. So those are just like an automatic.
So there's not a real person back there.
Someone didn't type that out manually.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think that's their system just like catching up as they get in.
I feel like
I get what you're saying, but to be fair, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, all right.
I'm pretty sure that is.
We did sort of put Chris Filippi, the earlier spokesperson, on the line. I said, what do you have to say to these folks? And he apologized. At least Trost, the other spokesperson, also apologized. But man, it's been a rough Friday. Okay, you need to go. We appreciate your extra time and your good hard work in the newsroom today for getting everything figured out. We're going to stay on top of this on Take Two, a super quick break, then back with more of what you all saw this morning.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you, Sammy. Go get yourself some rest.
Explaining the digital process.
Well, you are explaining the digital process. Welcome back to Take Two. We had to pull a key member of our KTV digital team up here. Lisa, you were at the helm when the breaking news made its way into our newsroom. A total system-wide shutdown of BART. When we say it's a shutdown, really, it was not even a start. Trains weren't rolling until well into the 9 o'clock hour. So we talked with Sammy, our assignment editor. He explained how we got crews where they need to be. You handled the digital side of all this. Tell us what you were going through.
So I'll give props thanks to our executive producer, our EP, yes, executive
Brett.
producer,
Yeah.
Brett,
Been a long morning.
We've trained all of our managers how to actually enter our software system so that like everything you read on your phone, a human is writing, and we train people how to do it and
Do a push alert.
do a push alert. We write all the stuff, and so Brett actually has something ready to go, and I gently copy edited it for him. He had it all ready to go, so he did the first stab at it, and then I just take over, and in a way, it's kind of like old school AP writing. If you know how to do that, you write a story, you add news, you refresh it, you break news, and then all the while you're also trying to like, there's a little bit of art to the writing. You don't want to just put like updates. I like to show how dramatic things are, and as I learn information from Allie and James in the field, and I'm listening to the television, writing down the quotes you had with Chris Filippi, I thought he was very honest and candid. I'm listening to it all and just writing it all the time, redoing it, and trying to make it like read well.
And you're gathering almost like a reporter in the field, which you have been in your journalism past, right? Now you're mostly inside, mostly, you know, in the digital team. You do go out and you do a good amount of reporting, but on a day like today, we're sort of
rewrite
receiving.
man.
Well, I mean, don't sell yourself short here, because so many people rely on, like you said, the push alert, just that notice that pops up on your phone. You may be, scrolling the how to cut your own bangs on Instagram that we talked about earlier, and then you get, critical news that'll affect how the rest of your day shakes out. So that's what you were making possible, you and Brett, this morning.
Yes. So it takes a village.
Takes a village.
It does.
Takes a village.
It does.
I saw that the New York Times did I subscribe to the New York Times. I was surprised to see it, but then I started thinking about it. It is a major system.
Pretty big, yeah.
Yeah,
We've
but
seen other cities. When the Baltimore system went down, I don't know, last year. I saw that come through. So it makes sense that a major city's transit system is down.
It does, but I was surprised in my own my email box that I got a breaking newsletter from the New York Times, which shows their digital team is working, sending out information I wouldn't have known, and it was a big enough deal that we put it into our story that the New York Times even covered this.
Wow,
So
that's pretty big.
It's a little newsy.
Interesting. Information is still coming in, obviously, about this whole situation, because even though trains are getting back to normal, it's going to take a while. We saw the traffic just a moment ago. We have a group called San Francisco Transit Riders. They sent out a press release just a short time ago. And they're warning people, you call it a historic service outage due to a computer issue this morning. And they are afraid that this could become the norm if they don't receive, BART doesn't receive critical funding from the state and local funding in the coming years. Of course, BART's talked about funding issues as of late because of the reduced number of people that are using the service since the pandemic.
Well, that's exactly where our James Torres is. He's moved to that downtown San Francisco location where the demonstration was set to start at around 10:15. We're going to pull him in just as soon as he's ready. This might look a little bumpy, but James, when you're out there, just go ahead and join into the conversation. We mentioned how when we spoke with Chris Filippi, he's ready? Let's do it. Let's go to James Torres. You're live in San Francisco. You were at the Salesforce Transit Center. Now you're at the site of the protest. He's focusing and framing up and getting a white balance. All right, James, where are you and what's happening there?
Yeah, that is the beauty of local demonstrations here. We got to set up the shot somehow. Good morning to you all, and thank you for giving us a chance to talk more about what we've been doing all morning. We started, as you know, at the Embarcadero station. That's where we saw the fare gates still down after 5 o'clock in the morning, and 5 o'clock we know is right when those trains are supposed to start for the day, at least on the weekdays. But the gates were still down. We saw maybe about 1 or 2 people walking up to the gates, realizing it's not letting them in, trying to figure out what's going on. I think it's a different story in the East Bay, because that's when people are really trying to target to get to San Francisco. The Embarcadero station, of course, is a landing point for much of those commuters. Once they actually opened up the gate, the fare gates were still closed. There was caution tape wrapped around the fare gates, and there were signs, both paper signs and these A-frames, letting you know that there was no trans-based service for BART stations, and then other signs saying that all the trains were also not in service. So thankfully, we're hours removed from that now. All the stations, all the BART trains are now working at this point, hours later. But as a result, and you may know, may be familiar with the conversations that are going on about funding for all our transit agencies here in the Bay Area, BART being included in that. So right now, we are in the middle of downtown San Francisco at the corner of Howard and Fremont. A group of people say that they plan to be out here doing some sort of demonstration trying to talk and show the importance about funding for BART. They say today is an example of what could be a new reality if BART doesn't get that kind of funding from the state legislature and through other means that they've been lobbying and asking for. So I've touched base with some of the organizers here. They say they're working on setting up. I'm not totally sure exactly what their demonstration is supposed to look like. I don't know if they'll be in the middle of the street, if they'll be walking with picket signs on the sidewalk, what exactly it is that they want to do to show their message, but we'll be here when it all gets started underway, and we'll show you what that looks like coming up during the news at noon.
All right, James, thank you. I wanted to say that I've been monitoring the traffic. I'm finally, and if Eric, if you can bring up my the Max 3 computer here, I'm finally beginning to see some improvement. If you're waiting around at home and you are thinking, bring up the traffic computer. If you can see, I put the arrow on the 880 ramp. All right, so people are waiting around at home. My goodness, when can I go? Look at that ramp. It's finally beginning to show signs of it thinning out. So, and I just checked on Google how long it takes to get. I just picked Daly City. It was 51 minutes. Now it's 39 minutes. It keeps going down. So if you're waiting at home, you might wait a little longer. You might go now because things are getting better.
They're calling this, by the way, BART, their update 12 minutes ago says 20-minute delay system-wide.
And that's that automated thing that...
Yeah, that Sammy was saying that I think you mentioned earlier. But yeah, I looked at it again. I'm like, 20 minutes, really?
Right.
But, you know, and we're not even talking about the evening commute yet, you know, where all these cars that we just see here are going to have to go back home afterward. Or people are going to be catching, you know, if a lot of them are rideshare, then, okay, maybe people might hop back on the train and go back to the East Bay here. But it's something we'll keep an eye on.
Agassi and I talked about this. You know, not everyone has the option. Like, some people don't have cars, right? So what happens then? You know?
Yeah. I think we got to take a quick break.
We do.
Right? Yeah,
when we
one
come
quick break, and then we'll have much more coming up right after this.
Welcome back to Take Two. The big story has been BART outage this morning that didn't really get resolved until about 9:30. It really blew other stories out of the water. We were going to be talking about the new Pope and other things, but this is affecting so many people. I'm still looking down at my monitor at the Bay Bridge. It's improving, but what is it, 10:25, it's still backed up significantly. You can definitely tell something has gone on today.
I feel like calling my daughter. We could just call her on TV because she's slogging through traffic from Oakland. She has a job at the Presidio at 10:30 in the morning. I haven't heard from her yet, so
Would
I'm
she
not
normally
sure.
take BART, or how
No,
would
she normally
okay.
drives, but I'm just
She has a lot of
imagining the traffic
company.
for her is terrible. I feel bad for her.
I guess you could have driven around maybe the other way, but other people would have thought the same thing, right? If you
Yeah,
drove
she's probably.
up to Marin.
She's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Usually
She
she
might be in a
calls
bad
me
mood.
when things are terrible,
She
so
might
I
be in a
haven't
bad
heard from
mood
him.
today.
Probably, yeah.
So before we wrap this up, you're also working on other things.
Yeah, what do you got?
Somewhat road related, this time very specifically in Oakland, and sort of a new development based on reporting from our newsroom.
Yeah,
right?
so it seems like it's a small story. Crews are out this morning paving Grizzly Road.
Grizzly Peak.
Grizzly Peak
Okay.
Boulevard, right near the steam trains in Tilden.
Up high, yeah.
So what? Who cares? But the Transportation Department told us that they're doing that specifically because of a story we did last summer that showed Oakland pays out the most in pothole settlements to people, especially two bicyclists who each, one had spinal injuries, one had paralysis. They got $6.5 million, each of them, from the city of Oakland because of they rode over potholes and cracked pavement in Oakland. And we looked at the other cities, San Jose, Fremont, San Francisco. No one has even close to that pay amount. So the Department of Transportation director was new to town. This was on TV, it was on his website. He saw it and he goes, why don't we pave these bicycle paths? And so they're out doing that this summer. He just, a few minutes ago, said he's doing 11 miles of Skyline and Grizzly Peak this summer to address the bike situation because it's really dangerous speeding down those roads fast.
Is this specifically for just bike lanes, or would potholes interfere with bike lanes?
There's no bike lanes on either of those roads, but it's just they're paving the downhill routes right now. They'll get to the uphill and stuff, but he realized, yes, people can
when
be
people
paralyzed.
are coming down, okay, I got you.
You fall over a pothole, and one woman suffered paralysis, and another man has a spinal injury. We interviewed a guy. He had a lesser injury. He got $1.5 million from the city. He can't hear anymore in his ear very well. He's a drummer. So it really, like, potholes, I think the story showed that it can cost the city a lot of money, but it costs people, you know, no one's died yet, but it changed their entire life.
Yeah, but most people think of potholes as an annoyance, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to go, you know, but it can be life-changing.
Yeah, you know, I think of it, you know, car damage. I mean, I had my tire busted by a pothole in Oakland. And so that's annoying. What you're describing is so much more worse than
my husband bikes these routes every weekend, and now that I've done this story, I think about him. I keep my phone on, and I'm like, okay, just make it down the hill. So he was very pleased to know that they're going to be paving his routes.
Good.
So you'll have that today?
Yeah, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to
Well, we're
get that
almost
ready.
done here. We're coming up on 10:28, so
Yeah.
we'll break you loose. I can't say enough about the whole digital team, headed by you, especially this morning. You guys do great work. You kept people informed, right? That they got to know what they needed to know before they headed out the door. So.
And you too, honestly.
I watch your stuff too when I'm up here delivering. So
well, I hear your stuff, so it's really like I was like, oh, Chris,
Collaboration Society.
you know, you're
All this benefited
interviewing
you at home.
interviewing people, and I'm listening to it, and so.
Yeah, it all worked out. So we appreciate your good
Yeah.
work. We appreciate your sticking with us. It has been a very long Friday morning, but we very much appreciate your time and attention. So we'll wrap things up for this Take Two. We'll send you off to Fox Local, and of course, we have more news coming up at noon.